Chapter 587. Other than nurturing spies, the secret division also recruited skilled craftsmen. One of them had developed an extremely powerful thunder flame. It's just that the people of the Tianji unit don't like to use this, but that bunch of uncouth guys from the ink camp really like it. Once they heard that Mu Yang allowed them to use the thunder fire, each and every one of them immediately became excited as if they were injected with chicken blood. Dozens of people rushed to the center of the city, under the shocked gazes of the surviving commoners and doctors. Suddenly, boom, rumble, rumble, dozens of loud noises resounded, the earth quaked, the mountains swayed, and the houses collapsed. This huge power scared everyone so much that their faces turned pale. Not long after, a few figures rushed out of the thick smoke as if their butts were on fire. Every single one of them was covered in dirt, looking indescribably pathetic. Who are they? Are you tired of living? You actually dare to make a move in Lotus Town? Mu Yang smiled and looked at the old man in the lead. Dr. Chen, long time no see. How have you been? Are you Yang, who was standing behind Mu Yang, looked at the old man's face that was covered in ash, and only his eyes were white. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. Looks like godly Dr. Chen isn't too unharmed. If you didn't tell me, I would have thought that you were a beggar. Chen Qing's line of sight falls firmly on Mu Yan's face. After a long time, he enunciates each word. Jun, Mu, face. It's really you. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, a puff of black smoke suddenly sprayed out. His original imposing manner of gritting his teeth suddenly became somewhat comical. Ha 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 ha. A group of people from the ink camp couldn't bear it any longer, holding their stomachs as they laugh until they fall. Dr. Chen, how did the Thunder God fire taste just now? Do you want to try 2 more? What miracle, Dr. Chen? I think Chen roast pig is more reliable. Ha 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 ha. Money roasted pig, that's the truth. It's just that this pig is black and stinky from head to toe. I don't want to taste it. As a divine doctor, Chen Qing had always been revered by people all these years, so when had he ever suffered such humiliation? His face contorted. However, he quickly calmed down, took the towel handed over by his subordinate, and wiped off the black ash on his face. After Chen Qing wiped away the soot, a familiar face appeared. The killing intent in the depths of Mu Yan's eyes slowly diffuses. Back then, it was this person who used the excuse of diagnosing her. She sold the news that she was pregnant with the fetus of immortal spirit to Gong Chenxue. From then on, she fell into an endless hell, eternally tormented by pain and regret. After wiping away the dirt on her face, Chen Qing recovered her sage-like demeanor and said with a leisurely smile, Jun Mu Yan, it's really been a long time. This old man really didn't expect that the weak and pitiful little girl from back then would actually grow to such an extent. This old man really feels gratified for you. Mu Yang said lightly, after so many years, it's really hard for Dr. Chen to remember me. How could I forget? That was the first and only immortal spirit fetus that this old man had ever felt. Before that, this old man had always thought that the secret technique passed down in my family was fake. Miracle Dr. Chen was still smiling as he said, this is also the fate between you, me, and the divine fetus. Since we have reunited today, don't you intend to let me see the child from back then? I'm sure he must have grown into a handsome little boy by now, right? Chapter 588. Mu Yan's fingers suddenly press down on the Tianmo Qin. The zither makes a humming sound. Her eyes are as deep and serene as the cold pools of hell, bottomless. The raging hatred from her past life rushes up like a tide. The strings are gently plucked, and the melodious sound of the zither is heard. The mist-dispersing clouds, skill quietly circulates along with her internal force. The raging hatred in Mu Yan's heart, as well as the uncontrollable desire to massacre, are also suppressed back to their original positions. A lazy smile slowly spreads out on her lips. Chen Qing, do you really think I don't know that you were the one who informed Gong Chenxue that I was pregnant with an immortal fetus? Back then, she pretended to care for me and took pity on me. She investigated my identity and whereabouts, and then sold me to Gong Chenxue. That's why Gong Chenxue bribed the Su family and wanted to take away the child from my belly. Am I right, godly Dr. Chen? The gentle smile on Chen Qing's face vanishes without a trace in a split second. Sure enough, you already know what happened back then. A cruel smile appears on his face, but what can you do even if you know? The one who wants your child is Yanwu Continent's #1 genius, Jingcheng Country's most powerful princess, Gong Qianxue. She's even a brilliant disciple of the Heavenly Road sect. She took a fancy to the child in your belly, that's your honor. It's the same now. As long as you give me your child, I guarantee that in the future, whether you want a treasure, power, status, or a rapid increase in strength, it will all be as easy as turning over your hand. He still hasn't finished his words. The sound of the zither under Muyan's hand suddenly changes. Clanging golden spears. Hundreds of cold lights shoot towards Chen Qing. Chen Qing's cultivation is extremely high, but facing such frightening internal force blades, he can't hide. In just the blink of an eye, there are countless wounds on his body. At the same time, the swords of the Ink Camp and the Tianji unit are suddenly unsheathed, pointing straight at Chen Qing. Muyan's lazy but cold voice comes through the air. Listening to you speak for even a moment longer makes me sick. Chen Qing, I think you'd better shut your mouth for me forever. Chen Qing sneers. Jun Muyan, I advise you not to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Hand over the child, and you still have a chance to live. Otherwise, do you really think you have a chance of winning with just these people? After saying that, he pinched his fingers together and blew on them. The corpse soldiers on the west side of the town, who were originally standing there like puppets, immediately rushed over and surrounded Mu Yang and the others. Chen Qing laughed heartily and said, Jun Muyan, no matter how many people you have under your command, could it be more than half of the common people of Lotus City? Besides, the underground palace of Lotus Flower City has been destroyed. The princess must have already received the news. Very soon, someone will come over and capture all of you in one fell swoop. Seeing that the girl in front of him didn't say anything, he felt a chill run down his spine. Chen Qingyu became more and more pleased with himself. I'll give you one more chance. As long as you hand over that child, I promise I'll definitely plead for leniency in front of the princess and spare your life. You have to think it through. You can have more children in the future, but you only have one chance to live and prosper. Don't tell me that your child's life is more important than your own. Mu Yang lifts her eyes, a smile on the corner of her mouth, but her eyes are incomparably cold. Unfortunately, I want your life even more. Chen Qing's face changed, and he finally flew into a rage out of humiliation. However, this time, without waiting for him to say anything, Mu Yang's words are like an order. Chapter 589. Chen Qing only feels a mouthful of blood stifled in his heart, but he doesn't care about the Ink Camp and the Tianji unit's attack. The Ink Camp and the Tianji unit have a lot of people, but can they outnumber the corpse soldiers? Their cultivation is higher than the corpse soldiers, but can it be higher than these peak heaven stage and early pre-celestial guards by his side? He has already inquired about it, and these people have only been following Muyan for a year and a half. Originally, these people were just slaves in WN Ren Ku, or those with very ordinary qualifications. It's only been a year and a half. How much progress can they make? Chen Qing is calm and unperturbed as he looks at Muyan, his gaze blazing. When this woman's subordinates are all killed, she'll cry and crawl at his feet, and hand over the child formed from the immortal fetus. Thump! Thump! Suddenly, two heads roll to his feet, carrying a strong smell of blood. Chen Qing frowns and kicks one away. These must be those useless corpse soldiers. Uncultivated corpse soldiers are useless, just a few hits and they'll be wasted. Chen Qing is about to kick the second head away, when he suddenly stops. His eyes widen a little, then he looks incredulously at the face that's close at hand. This face is covered in blood, a pair of eyes wide open, the whole face full of alarm and disbelief. But this clearly isn't the face of a corpse soldier, but it's the guard by his side. That's a peak heaven stage guard. Chen Qing suddenly looks up, and his figure suddenly freezes. No, impossible. This is absolutely impossible. He doesn't know when it started, but the guards by his side have already been reduced by half. As for the corpse soldiers, they were beheaded one after another as if they were chopping vegetables. With a thump, a corpse falls towards Chen Qing. A long gash is split open on his stomach, and blood gurgles out. The guard grabs Chen Qing's hand and shouts, "Save me! Save me!" Chen Qing cries out in alarm, and suddenly shakes off the guard. Very soon, the ink camp people rush up, and their swords fall, cutting off the guard's head. That's a heaven stage, even a pre-celestial expert. How could they be so vulnerable? Chen Qing lets out an almost hysterical roar. Then, melodious music slowly drifted into his ears. The music was clearly so beautiful and pleasant to listen to. However, in Chen Qing's ears, it caused his entire body to feel hot and uneasy, and he was utterly unable to properly condense his profound energy. On the contrary, the people of the ink camp and the heavenly secret unit, listening to the sound of the zither, it's as if they're listening to the imperial edict: the more they fight, the braver they become. Chen Qing's lifeless gaze slowly shifts to Mu Yang's hand. The girl's hand was so beautiful, as white as jade, with well-proportioned joints, slender. When he gently plucked the strings, it was as if he was using a feather to pluck the heartstrings of a person. As he moved his fingers, beautiful musical notes flowed out and danced in the air. But it was precisely this pair of slender, jade-like hands, and this beautiful and melodious music that led to an unimaginable massacre. Level 3 Shen musician skill, graceful feather dress. AoE support skill, using the sound of the zither to lock onto allies and enemies. Within a quarter of an hour, the strength of their own members would increase by 30%, while the strength of the enemy would decrease by 30%. What did that mean? In other words, he forcibly pulled Chen Qing's Xiantian level guards to heaven level. Chapter 590. In addition, the Ink Camp and the Tianji unit have practiced the formation and cooperation countless times. Thus, in Chen Qing's mind, the formidable defensive force they were cleanly chopped down like withered twigs and rotten wood. When he's kicked in the butt by Guan Hu and falls to the ground, his brain still hasn't reacted. He keeps muttering, "Impossible, how is this possible? How is this possible?" His gaze suddenly turns to Mu Yang. His lips tremble for a long time, unable to say a complete sentence. You, who are you? Why, how can she achieve such a frightening result just by relying on the sound of the zither? Defeating the strong with the weak. Defeating the many with the few. Defeating a pre-celestial with the heaven stage. Just because of a musician's zither? Are you kidding me? How could there be such a powerful musician in this world? Mu Yang's fingers pluck, and the sound of the zither stops. She stands up, and steps towards Chen Qing. Chen Qing is so scared that he suddenly falls back, using his hands and feet to desperately crawl backwards. No, you can't kill me. I'm the pavilion master of Shen Medical Pavilion. I'm a famous genius doctor. If you kill me, Shen Medical Pavilion won't let you off. Shen Medical Pavilion? Are you? Yang sneers. Oh, if Dr. Chen didn't mention Shen Medical Pavilion, I would have forgotten. On our way to Lotus City, we just happened to pass by the headquarters of Shen Medical Pavilion. The hands of our brothers were itching, so we took over that Shen Medical Pavilion. Chen Qing's eyes widen, his body stiffens for a long time, then he screams, "Impossible. How is this possible? I raised the poison men in Shen Medical Pavilion, it's my blood and sweat for decades. How is this possible? Hihi, those poison men are. My brothers chopped them into pieces and fed them to your disciples and grand disciples." Guan Hu grins. "I really didn't expect that those poison men of yours would be so fierce. They only tasted a few mouthfuls, and those disciples and grand disciples of yours would all be dead. Oh, there's also those rare medicinal herbs that you've collected. It just so happens that our Nether Flame Army's Immortal Battalion is in urgent need of medicinal herbs, so we'll gladly accept it." Chen Qing's body trembles like a sieve, her mouth incessantly muttering, It can't be, my Shen Medical Pavilion, how could it be destroyed so easily?" Mu Yan says unhurriedly, "Godly Dr. Chen, you just said that you want the people of Shen Medical Pavilion to kill us?" No, I'm talking nonsense." Chen Qing abruptly comes back to his senses. In a split second, his face is covered in snot and tears. He crawls over to Mu Yang and keeps crying, "Miss Jun, please spare me. Back then, it was Gong Chenxue who instigated it. I was only coerced by her. Yes, It was she who coerced me to tell her all about you. For the sake of your miscarriage, I beg you, please spare my life. Woo woo woo. Mu Yang looked down at him begging for mercy like a dog. After a long silence, she said, Dr. Chen, do you really want to live? Yes, I want to live. As long as Miss Jun spares me, even if I have to work like a cow or a horse, I will be willing. Ah, there's no need to work like a cow or a horse. Mu Yan chuckles, but there's one thing that I really need Dr. Chen's help with. Saying that, she unhurriedly walks over to Dr. Yu and the others. Chapter 591. Mu Yan's expression turns gentle, softly saying, Doctors, don't be afraid, you've all been implicated by me. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. With a flick of her wrist, dozens of porcelain bottles are placed in front of them. Doctors, are you willing to believe me? Drink this bottle of draft, and I'll take out the mother GU from your bodies. Dr. Yu and the others look at each other, then pick up the draft without hesitation and drink it all in one gulp. Almost as soon as these people drink the draft, their stomachs rumble, and their faces distort from the pain. However, before they can cry out in pain, Mu Yan has already moved. Her movements are very fast, cutting open a person's stomach in almost a breath's time. She takes out the black worms inside and puts them in a jade box. It's unknown if it's because of the life-saving draft she just drank, or the fact that Mu Yan's cuts aren't big, so those wounds quickly heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a short few dozen breaths, Mu Yan has taken out all the GU worms from the doctor's stomachs. But these people who had their stomachs cut open are completely unscathed. Even the wound of the first one, Dr. Yu, has already completely healed. These people can't even react to what just happened. Madam Enchantress, your medical skills are truly superb. When they suddenly wake up, Dr. Yu and the others all kneel down, looking at Mu Yan with eyes full of worship. Thank you for saving our lives. Even if the person before them is a budding girl. In terms of age, Mu Yan is still too young to be their granddaughter. However, at this very moment, Mu Yan's medical skills, her strength, and her character have already conquered all the doctors present. Mu Yan smiles at them, then turns around and returns to Qian Qing. Qian Qing looks at the jade box holding the GU worms in her hands, and her complexion turns deathly pale. Jun Mu Yan, you, what do you want to do? Do what? Mu Yan tilts her head, revealing a somewhat innocent smile. Of course it's the thing that godly Dr. Qian likes to do to others the most. Qian Qing trembles and screams, Jun Mu Yan, don't act recklessly. These mother GU in your hands are the last golden silkworm larvae in Qianshue's hands. If you kill them all, Gong Qianshue, she absolutely won't let you off. Oh, really? That's great. It just so happens that I never intended to let her off. Saying that, Mu Yang slowly opens the jade box. Qian Qing let out a shrill cry as the profound energy within her body suddenly circulated, and she was about to flee. However, just as he flew 10 feet away, then, he felt a sharp pain on his forehead. Bai Chen, who was guarding behind him, had kicked him back. Qian Qing cries out in pain, rolls a few times, and returns in front of Mu Yang. Mu Yang squatted down and said casually, Miracle Dr. Qian, I advise you not to move around. Otherwise, I won't be responsible if you accidentally pull off an intestine when you cut open your stomach and put in the GU worm. Qian Qing desperately struggled to escape, but her body suddenly felt as if it was filled with lead, completely unable to move. Tears and snot streamed down his face as he pleaded loudly, spare me. I won't dare to do it again. The expression on Mu Yan's face turns cold inch by inch. Qian Qing, don't you like to cut open people's bellies and take away their children? How can you not be happy that your stomach was cut open today? Chapter 592. Using your identity as a doctor, you want to use other people's children in exchange for your own bright future. You even told Gong Qianshue that if she ate my child, her skills would greatly improve. The cause of everything is this animal doctor with a human face but a beast's heart. In her previous life, she lost her child, lost everything, and fell into the most painful abyss. But this man, using the resources he obtained from Gong Qianshue, he made a meteoric rise, becoming a godly doctor that everyone in Yenwu continent admires. He, such a cruel and unscrupulous man, treating other people's lives as worthless. But when his own life is threatened, he cries and snot, incessantly begging for mercy. But Chen Qing, what qualifications do you have to be forgiven? Miss, why don't you let me do it? Guan, who is eager to give it a try, this subordinate likes to cut open people's stomachs the most. We can do it too. We can do it too. The other people from the ink camp are also in high spirits. Mu Yang's taut emotions, immersed in hatred, suddenly relax. She still hasn't spoken. Among the citizens of Lotus Town, a commoner suddenly steps out, gritting his teeth and saying, "This fairy doctor, can you let me cut open this person's stomach? Can you let me put these GU worms in with my own hands? My child was thrown into the pile of corpse soldiers by this group of bastards, not even his bones were left." That middle-aged woman chokes with sobs as she speaks, her hateful eyes unwaveringly glaring at Chen Qing. "My husband has been turned into a monster that's neither human nor ghost. I wish I could eat his flesh raw, nor his bones." "Me too. Fairy doctor, I beg you, let us do it." Mu Yang raises the corner of her mouth, full of interest as she looks at Chen Qing, who has already turned deathly pale from fright. She chuckles and says, "Dr. Chen, you see, a lot of people want to serve you. If I don't fulfill their wishes, wouldn't I be letting down everyone's good intentions?" She raises her head, handing the dagger and the jade box containing the GU worms to the middle-aged woman. That middle-aged woman sees that Mu Yang has really agreed, and her face flushes with excitement. She takes the dagger, and without hesitation, she slashes open Chen Qing's stomach. Chen Qing immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered as he watched the GU worms being stuffed into his stomach. The intense pain and the fear of death makes Chen Qing unable to help but curse, "Jun Muyan, you poisonous woman, you won't have a good death. I am Gong Chenshue's person. If you dare to kill me, Gong Chenshue will definitely not let you off." "Ah, Jun Muyan, you, don't be too pleased with yourself. Gong Chenshue already knows that you're the one who was pregnant with the immortal fetus. She definitely won't let you and your child off. Just wait to be refined into elixirs by Gong Chenshue and eaten alive." Chen Qing hadn't finished his insane threat. Suddenly, someone grabbed his chin. Yang Haotian sneered and pulled out his tongue. He sheathed his saber and slashed down. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere. He had always remembered that the young mistress had said that she didn't want to hear him speak anymore. But a moment later, all the GU worms were sent into Chen Qing's stomach. Chen Qing's mouth was full of blood as he struggled on the ground. Each and every one of the common people of Lotus City was still filled with righteous indignation. Their hatred and anger had yet to dissipate. One by one, they rushed forward, punching and kicking Chen Qing. There was even someone who directly chopped off his hands that wanted to resist. Chapter 593. As the doctor's internal force revolves, his body dries up at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the contrary, his belly swells up high, even higher than any of the doctor's just now. Seeing that Chen Qing has no way out, and will slowly die in hellish pain and torture. Only then will the doctors and the people be satisfied. "Miss, in this Lotus Town, we only found Dr. Yu and the others. Chang Yu, Chen Qingfeng, and Dr. Song aren't here. I'm afraid they're still in Gong Chenshue's hands." Yu Yang worriedly reports, "If Gong Chenshue uses Dr. Song and the others to threaten us, I'm afraid that our actions will be restrained from taking action. Moreover, we still haven't found out where Gong Chenshue's real stronghold is." Hearing this, Muyan doesn't speak for a long time. Her line of sight shifts slightly and falls on the western sky. The corner of her mouth hooks up into a cold arc. "Don't worry, there's a place where someone must know Gong Chenshue's whereabouts. Moreover, doesn't Gong Chenshue like to use hostages to threaten us? Then we'll get more hostages and see who's the one threatening who in the end." Hearing this, Yu Yang's eyes brighten. "Miss, where are the hostages you spoke of?" Before Mu Yang could reply, several people of Lotus Flower Town walked in front of her. "Madam Enchantress of Medicine, many thanks for your life-saving grace. Everyone in our Lotus Flower Town will never forget your great kindness and kindness for generations to come. These people kneeling on the ground are representatives chosen by the people of Lotus Town. Each one of them is a person of virtue and prestige, and their age is more than enough to be Muyen's grandfather. How could Muyen dare to accept such a big gift? She quickly helps them up. Who knows that these people are determined not to get up? Instead, they ask with red eyes, "Madam Enchantress of Medicine, just now, listening to the conversation between you and that beast Chen Qing, we seem to have heard that the disaster that my Lotus Town has suffered today was caused by Gong Chenxue?" Muyen's movements pause, and after a long while, she nods. Yes, Gong Chenxue should be using Lotus Town as her place to raise corpse soldiers. She's the princess of your Jingcheng country. What are your plans? Bah! How could that disgusting poisonous woman be worthy of being Jingcheng country's princess? Their Gong family also doesn't deserve to own Jingcheng country. The old man in the lead gnashed his teeth and roared, "Madam Enchantress, we know that you and that Gong Chenxue have an irreconcilable enmity. We, the people of Lotus Town, are willing to lend you a hand. We must publicize Gong Chenxue's vicious actions to all the people of Jingcheng country. We will make Gong Chenxue lose all standing and reputation, let the Gong family's dynasty in Jingcheng country be completely destroyed. Jingcheng country, imperial capital, Anlong city. Miss, this is the imperial palace of Jingcheng country." Yu Yang blinks her eyes and says in disbelief, "Don't tell me that when you said to capture more hostages than Gong Chenxue, you mean to capture them in the imperial palace of Jingcheng country?" Mu Yang slightly raises her eyebrows. "What? You don't dare to make a move? This is the royal family of Jingcheng country." Yu Yang is so excited that her face turns slightly red. "I heard that the Gong family has been the ruler of Jingcheng country for hundreds of years. There are countless experts in the imperial palace, but no one has ever been able to shake their foundation." The corner of Mu Yang's mouth raises into a slight smile. "So, you guys don't dare to make a move?" Chapter 594. Are we going to usurp the throne in Jingcheng country? Are we going to be rebels and traitors? That's great. This is in line with the style of our ink camp. Piak. A slap landed on Guan Hu's head. Feng Haitang said coldly, "If you don't know how to talk, don't talk nonsense." He actually compared their young miss to a traitor. Was this guy tired of living? Guan Hu gloomily wanted to refute, but he saw that the one who hit him was Feng Haitang. He immediately looked at Yang Haotian carefully and swallowed his words. This Feng Haitang was their leader's favorite person. How could they dare to offend her? At this moment, Yu Yang seems as if she has just woken up from a dream. Her face is dizzy. "My God, we only have a little more than 100 people coming this time, and you actually want to destroy the imperial palace of Jingcheng country and take the royal family of Jingcheng country hostage? I'm not dreaming, am I? Hehe, Miss Ruyan, only when you succeed like this, do you feel refresh." This time, Mu Yang only brought by Ichen, Yu Yang, Yang Haotian, Feng Haitang, Old Dao, the leaders of the various camps, as well as the most elite of the three camps. Because only with a small number of people could they sneak into Anlong City without anyone noticing. But it was just as Yu Yang said. If these 100 people want to take down Jingcheng country's imperial palace, it's just like a dream. One must know that there are a lot of experts in Jingcheng country's royal palace. There were more than 10 Xiantian realm martial artists. How could they succeed? At night, the imperial palace of Jingcheng country is still brightly lit, singing and dancing to celebrate peace. It was obviously so noisy, and there were bursts of music. However, suddenly, a strand of zither music drifted into everyone's ears in a leisurely manner. The sound of the zither was so beautiful that it seemed to be able to penetrate deep into one's bones. "Your First Highness, what music is this? How could it be so wonderful?" Jingcheng country's great prince Gong Chenye's reading companion couldn't help but ask with an intoxicated expression. The other people in the palace were already in a trance, and their eyes were gradually blurred, as if they had lost focus. Gong Chenye's eyes were red as he staggered outside. "Who? Which beauty was playing the zither? Quickly come into this prince's arms and let this prince dote on you." Suddenly, his study companion cried out in alarm, "Your Highness, look, That person is at the top of the Palace of Heavenly Purity. The Hall of Heavenly Purity is the tallest building in the Imperial Palace of Jingcheng Country. The roof of the hall was pointed. The high roof almost reached the clouds. But even from such a distance, that pure white slender figure was still so clear. The bright moonlight sprinkled on the top of the peak, as if plated the figure with a lustrous white light. He was so far away that he couldn't even see his face clearly. But just a glance at her ethereal, fairy-like figure and her graceful movements that seemed as if she were about to soar into the sky was enough to enchant Gong Qianye. Which beauty has arrived? Gong Qianye's voice is too loud as he shouts, "At home is Jingcheng Country's eldest prince, Gong Qianye. As long as you're willing to come down and accompany this prince for a night of spring, this prince can guarantee that you'll enjoy endless glory, splendor, and wealth." However, the people above did not seem to hear him at all. The sound of the zither was still spreading. From the beginning, it was only around the Palace of Heavenly Purity. Slowly, the entire imperial palace seemed to be shrouded in the sound of the zither. Chapter 595. Guards. Gong Qianye shouts, "Quickly send someone to invite that beauty down for me." Hearing this, the guards beside Gong Qianye immediately soar up. Each and every one of them has a cultivation above heaven's stage. Climbing the Hall of Heavenly Purity is absolutely as easy as turning one's hand. However, these people have just reached the roof, not waiting for them to approach. The sound of the zither abruptly changes, turning into a powerful army. In a split second, countless sharp blades come whistling out. Puff, puff, puff. With a few sudden sounds, these guards are pierced by the invisible blades, turning into a hornet's nest. One by one, they fall from the roof. The last thing they see before they die is a beautiful girl, smiling brightly under the moonlight. That smile is bright and holy, like a fairy that has fallen from the ninth heaven to the mortal world. And the girl's soft and sweet-sounding whisper, "The performance of Floating Like a Dream is almost finished, it's time to start, graceful feather." This scene almost stupefies everyone. Gong Qianye didn't expect that so many of his powerful subordinates would be completely wiped out in the blink of an eye. Who is this woman? Why did she suddenly appear here? Gong Qianye's heart thumps, and is about to have someone alert the entire imperial palace. Suddenly, he sees a white figure, like a floating cloud, flying down from the sky above the Hall of Heavenly Purity. When he sees the girl's countenance up close, Gong Qianye's breathing almost stops. So beautiful. How could there be such a beautiful person in this world? Gong Qianye murmurs, reaching out towards Muyan. His eyes are filled with intoxication and greed. "Beauty, I don't care who you are, as long as you are willing to become this prince's favored concubine, this prince will forgive your crime of disrespect just now. How about it?" His hand was about to come into contact with that delicate skin. Suddenly, a cold light flashes. Gong Qianye immediately feels a sharp pain in his hand. He doesn't even have time to react before he sees his hand, which was about to touch Muyan, fall from his wrist. Blood suddenly gushes out like a fountain. Gong Qianye lets out a blood-curdling scream, and is supported by the reading companion behind him. "Who the hell are you?" The reading companion roared angrily. "Do you know who this person is? You actually dare to hurt Jingcheng Country's first prince. Are you tired of living?" He did not finish his sentence. Suddenly, countless heaven-shaking battle cries came from all directions. From afar, one can hear Jingcheng Country's imperial palace's guards shouting in anger and alarm, "Who are you people? Don't you have eyes? This is the imperial palace of Jingcheng Country, and you actually dare to trespass. Ah, he, we barged in because we knew this was the Gong family's nest. Why can't I use my profound energy? Ah." In a short period of time, the entire imperial palace was in chaos. Even the emperor of Jingcheng Country and the other princes have been woken up from their dreams and hurried over. Seeing the injury on Gong Qianye's hand, Jingcheng Country's emperor Gong Yanghai sees his eldest son screaming miserably with a broken hand. He immediately exclaims, "Ye, what happened to you? Your Majesty, it's her. It's this woman who hurt His Highness." Gong Qianye's reading companion points at Muyan and shouts, "Those thieves who broke into the imperial palace must have been brought in by this witch. Chapter 596. Muyan raises her eyes to look at him, her expression leisurely and careless. At this time, she's casually sitting on an old-fashioned wooden armchair, gently plucking the strings. It's different from the melodious and sweet sound of Floating Like a Dream. The music of Graceful Feather starts off in a low voice, making people almost unable to hear it, as if it's crying and complaining. It's only later that it slowly becomes more and more sonorous. As the music gradually increases in pitch, the two sides of the battle are slowly locked on, and given positive and negative support. Until the Graceful Feather locks on all the people present. Muyan slightly slows down the movement of her fingers, chuckling, "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that I would like to ask everyone to come with me." Ha! Gong Yanghai seems to think that he's heard the funniest joke. "Who do you think you are? You actually dare to behave atrociously in our Jingcheng country's imperial palace?" Saying that, he fiercely waves his hand and shouts angrily, "Come, mobilize the Yulin royal guards, kill this thief for me." Almost as soon as his hand is waved down, a group of elite soldiers come to surround them from all directions. Although the people surrounding them aren't as powerful as Gong Yanghai thinks. But with just 100 people, it's more than enough to get rid of a little girl. "Imperial father, leave this slut with her dog life." Gong Chenye clenches his broken hand, gnashing his teeth. "This child can't swallow this. I must torture her to death to dispel the hatred in my heart." Gong Yanghai casually nods, simply not taking Muyan's life or death to heart. However, he soon discovers that something's wrong. Because the group of black-clothed people that rushed out didn't surround the girl. Instead, they surrounded the group of people. Several people even walk to Muyan's side, bowing and kneeling towards her. "Greetings." Miss Muyan asks faintly, "Did things go smoothly?" Guan, who laughs mischievously, "Miss, you used the sound of the zither to seal the internal force of most of the guards, and some of them are in a trance, as if they were dreaming. We broke into the palace gates without much effort. Now, the 4 gates of the north, south, east and west have all been blocked by us. I'm afraid no one will be able to enter in a short period of time. The 3rd stage of Floating Like a Dream can only be used after the Shun musician skill has been unlocked to the 3rd level. It was different from before when it could only trap one person in the illusion. The 3rd stage, Floating Like a Dream, could be used on a large scale, causing those with low cultivation and weak willpower to fall into a temporary illusion. And in this short dream, Mu Yang could choose whether to increase their cultivation speed or directly seal the circulation of their profound qi. The rank 3, Floating Like a Dream, was similar to Graceful Feather, a skill that could be said to be a heaven-defying cheat. However, these 2 skills could only be activated with spiritual energy. After using these 2 skills in a row tonight, the spiritual power in Mu Yang's body has been completely consumed. He wouldn't be able to use it for the time being. However, Mu Yang did not care, because her profound qi could still be used. The royal family members in front of them had already become turtles in a jar. "You, who the hell are you people?" Gong Yanghai seemed to have just come to his senses. Chapter 597. Seeing that there aren't any soldiers coming, he finally panics a little. "What do you want?" "If you want gold, silver, treasures, rare elixirs, I can give them all to you. Moreover, our daughter is a brilliant disciple of the Heavenly Road sect, the #1 genius of the Yanwu continent. You should know that offending our Jingcheng country will not end well." Ha ha ha. The people from the ink camp can't help but laugh. What Jingcheng country's royal family? It turns out to be just a bunch of gutless softies. "Dog Emperor, do you know why we want to lay our hands on you?" Why? Guan, who reveals his dense white teeth, saying sinisterly, "It's because your good daughter, Gong Chenxue, has an irreconcilable enmity with my family's miss. As the saying goes, a daughter pays a father's debt, so a daughter's debt naturally has to be paid by you, her parents and relatives. So if you want to blame someone, hehe, blame that snake and scorpion's daughter of yours." Gong Yanhai's complexion greatly changes. He suddenly turns around and runs towards the rear with all his might. At this moment, he doesn't even care about the lives of his wife, children, and ministers. When the people from the ink camp are about to catch up to him, he even directly grabs a concubine and blocks the blade for him. And it's also because of this moment of delay. A dozen or so gusts of wind suddenly break through the air from the southeast direction. Gong Yanhai's originally panicked face suddenly brightens when he sees these approaching figures. Ha 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 ha. Gong Yanhai snaps his head back, his face malevolent as he stares at Muyan. Your time of death has come. As he speaks, those dozen or so figures have already landed by Gong Yanhai's side. Bowing towards him, they say, Your Majesty, these subordinates have come to the rescue too late. Kill them. Kill them all for me. Gong Yanhai abruptly interrupts them, panting heavily, except for that little slut, kill everyone else. I want them to know the consequences of provoking my Jing Cheng country's royal family. The guards in the palace have indeed all been dealt with by the people from the Ink camp. But those guards aren't the Gong family's biggest safeguard. Their safeguard is this group of pre-celestial experts. A whole 12 pre-celestial experts. That's a fighting force comparable to thousands of troops and horses. Gong Yanhai had just fled in a panic because he knew that these elders would soon arrive. As long as he could drag this out until the elders arrived, these thieves would definitely die. He viciously looked at the leader of the thieves, the girl who was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal. He had expected to see her panic-stricken expression. Unexpectedly, her face was still as calm as before, and there was even a lazy smile on her lips. Seeing the 12 people approaching him, Yang Ling's eyes widened. Muyan waves her hand. Tianji unit, Ink camp, withdraw. Guard the palace gates. It's the sound. With a response, the more than 100 people who had just surrounded Muyan retreated like a tide. Only Mu Yang, Bai Ichen, Yang Haotian, Yu Yang, and Feng Haitang were left on the field. Mu Yang stretched out a slender jade finger and pointed at the surrounding pre-celestial experts. She chuckled and said, 1, 2, 3, 4, a total of 12 people. I'll take 8 and you 4. How about it? Hearing this, Bai Ichen and the others looked ashamed. The young miss dealt with 8 by herself, while the 4 of them could only deal with 4. This was simply telling them how big of a gap there was between them and the young miss. However, they couldn't refute him at all. Chapter 598. Except for Bai Ichen, who can easily deal with an early pre-celestial, it's a bit difficult for the others to kill a pre-celestial expert alone, even with the help of Feather Grace. Just as they're feeling depressed, they suddenly hear a cold childish voice coming from somewhere. Nyang Qin, Xiao Bao can also take care of too. A little boy who looks like a doll carved from jade pokes his head out from behind Mu Yang. He grabs Mu Yang's hand and gently shakes it, his face resolute. Yu Yang and the others are already used to Xiao Bao's mysterious appearance. They don't find it strange that he suddenly appears. Mu Yang just smiles and says, okay, then Xiao Bao will take care of these 2 ugly ones. The 4 people suddenly become even more depressed. They can't compare to the miss, but now they can't even compare to a 4-year-old child. They really want to bang their heads and die. Death is at hand, but they're still talking nonsense. The old man who leads the 12 people, a high pre-celestial, sneers, mere 5 heaven stages, and they actually have the audacity to fight against us pre-celestial experts. Haha, this is the biggest joke I've ever heard. Yang Haotian and the others suddenly turn their eyes to the 12 people. The grievance in their hearts instantly turns into a strong fighting spirit. Even if they're weaker than the miss, but these annoying old men, they must get rid of them cleanly and neatly. Otherwise, how can they be qualified to be the leaders of the 4th camp? As early as when Mu Yang was only a middle pre-celestial, she could already fight against more than 10 ghost envoys in the ghost city. Not to mention that she has now reached the peak of pre-celestial. In just half an hour, the 6 pre-celestial practitioners that Mu Yang has locked onto are already lying on the ground, dying. She doesn't pay attention to Gong Yanhai's scream of horror and his almost fainted face. Mu Yang calmly plucks the strings of the zither, playing the Feather Grace with her remaining spiritual power while giving pointers to Yang Haotian and the others in their fight. The second person to kill his opponent is Xiao Bao. As soon as he's done, he immediately runs to Mu Yang's side and raises his little face to look at her. His big watery eyes are filled with excitement and expectation. This expression, like that of an ordinary child asking for praise, makes Mu Yang laugh. She picks up Xiao Bao and kisses him on his soft little face, then praises, "Xiao Bao is really amazing, you're already at the peak of heaven stage." Xiao Bao nodded heavily. This time, he didn't just skip the high rank of heaven rank and break through to the peak of heaven rank. Furthermore, even his spiritual root was showing signs of being molded. Mu Yang kisses his face a few more times. During this time, the people of Jingcheng country's royal family panicked and wanted to escape. But when Mu Yang plucked the zither strings and the zither sound blades, transformed into countless blades, cutting their skin, they immediately screamed in horror and fell to the ground. On the other side, Bai Ichen had already finished his battle and returned to Mu Yang's side. He was already at the peak of the heaven stage and was only one step away from the innate stage. Coupled with the assistance of the feather grace, it only took him more than an hour to deal with a mid-level pre-celestial expert. Mu Yang glanced at him and said with a smile, "After this battle, you can prepare to break through to the innate realm." Bai Chen's eyes lit up. He didn't say anything but nodded solemnly. Compared to Mu Yang, Xiao Bao, and Bai Chen, who are relaxed, Yang Haotian, Yu Yang, and Feng Haitong's battles were much more difficult. Chapter 599. Moreover, they relied on Mu Yan's zither sound and elixirs to break through in a short time. It can be said that they simply have no combat experience. So even with the help of the graceful feather, they are still racking their brains, and there are bloody wounds all over their bodies. But Mu Yan doesn't have the slightest intention to help. Because she knows that these people can only truly grow after experiencing cruel battles, and only then can they bear the responsibility of a camp leader. Finally, a full hour has passed. A message comes from the Ink camp, "Miss, we can't drag it any longer. Jingcheng country's army is already attacking the city gate. Our brothers can't hold on much longer." Mu Yan nods, just as she's about to speak only to hear a loud bang, and Yang Haotian's opponent crashes to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes are still wide open, filled with unwillingness and aghast. Until his death, he still couldn't figure out why he, a dignified pre-celestial expert, would lose to a heaven-grade practitioner. Yang Haotian's victory is like an omen. Yu Yang's figure suddenly becomes almost invisible, like a phantom. That pre-celestial expert has been playing with Yu Yang, leaving deep wounds on her body that are visible to the bone. But at this moment, she suddenly panics. Because she can't see or feel where Yu Yang is at all. It's like in a split second, Yu Yang's speed has risen to the limit that humans can bear. The next moment, that pre-celestial practitioner only feels a pain in his neck, and his head is directly cut off. And Feng Haitong's hand turns blood red in an instant. When that blood-red palm slaps the pre-celestial practitioner's body. He didn't care at first, but later he finds that his internal force is becoming thinner and thinner, and he can't even use it. In the end, a long sword pierced through his heart, killing him. Yang Haotian, Yu Yang, and Feng Haitang slowly walk in front of Mu Yan. Their bodies are riddled with scars, and with every step they take, blood drips down. But their eyes are unprecedentedly bright, confident, and full of expectations for the future. Mu Yan raises the corner of her mouth, revealing a cheerful smile. "You guys did very well, I'm proud of you." With just this sentence, the trio's eyes instantly turn red. Almost at the same time, the three of them knelt down. "We are willing to serve Miss for the rest of our lives. We will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." Mu Yan casually tosses out a bottle of draft. "There's no need to go through fire and water, just escort this dog emperor to the city gates for me." Because the lives of Gong Yanghai and a group of royal relatives are in their hands, the Jingcheng country army outside has no choice but to retreat 10 miles away. It can be said that the entire Jingcheng country's imperial palace is completely under Mu Yan's control. Gong Yanhai's complexion paled, staring fixedly at the young girl sitting lazily on the dragon throne. His eyes nearly split open. "You rebel, my Jingcheng country has millions of troops. Do you really think you can always be arrogant? I'm warning you, you'd better let us go immediately. Kowtow and admit your mistake, and I might even leave you with a whole corpse." Before Gong Yanghai could finish his words, Guan Hu immediately stepped forward, grabbed him by the collar, and started beating him from both sides. Pa, 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 pa. After a dozen slaps, Gong Yanhai's face immediately swelled up like a pig's head. Chapter 600. With a wave of her hand, someone immediately drags out Chen Qing, who no longer looks like a human. The corner of Mu Yang's mouth hooks up into a cold arc. In this godly Dr. Qian's stomach, it's all your precious daughter Gong Qianshue's favorite golden silkworm mother Ji, and there are nearly 100 of them. If anyone doesn't answer my questions properly, I don't mind taking one out of godly Dr. Qian's belly and stuffing it into your stomach. I believe that you won't dislike something that Gong Qianshue likes so much. Gong Yanghai widens his eyes in horror, looking at Chen Qing's bulging belly and his hands that are only skin and bones. His body begins to tremble uncontrollably, and Gong Qianye is already screaming, wanting to run away. No, I don't want to become like that. Spare me. I don't want to die. Boo-hoo. Guan Hu immediately steps forward and slaps him a few more times. Grandson of a turtle, our miss didn't let you speak. You'd better keep your mouth shut for me, otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Muyan coldly sweeps her eyes over these people. In her previous life, she had also stayed in the imperial palace of Jingcheng country for a period of time. Regarding the debauchery of the Gong family's royal family, she couldn't be any clearer. At that time, she still felt that Gong Qianshue was untainted by the mud. With this kind of family, she herself was noble and untainted, not the slightest bit affected. But she didn't know that Gong Qianshue was the one with the most poisonous heart. Speak, where is Gong Qianshue's real stronghold? How many people does she have? Muyan looks at Gong Yanghai below, and slowly says in a calm tone, speak clearly, and I can spare your dog lives. Gong Yanghai shrinks, opening his mouth to speak. But he hears Muyan continue, you'd better make sure that what you say is the truth. Otherwise, under the hypnosis of my zither, if you accidentally spit out the truth, I believe that you wouldn't be willing to bear that fate. Gong Yanghai remembers the frightening effect of her zither. How could he dare to lie again? No matter how important his daughter Gong Qianshue is, how can it be more important than his own life? Therefore, she immediately spilled the beans. She is in Litian City, which was given to her by me. It is adjacent to Huang Yarrow country. There are 100,000 soldiers in there. You. Stop dreaming. That Litian City is easy to defend and hard to attack. Shuera still has 100,000 soldiers and Xiantian experts. You better let us go. Mu Yang's fingers moved, and the sound of the zither flowed out. The person below seemed to be drunk in an instant. He swayed and fell asleep. She stood up from the throne and sneered, throw everyone in the palace out, then burn this filthy place down for me. As for these people, keep a close eye on them. This is a surprise that I want to give Gong Qianshue. Yes, miss. In the dark night, a blazing fire illuminates the sky of Jingcheng country's imperial capital. The people who were asleep all ran out and looked in the direction of the fire. They were so shocked that they could not come back to their senses. Isn't that the imperial palace? How did the palace catch fire? What the hell happened? Suddenly, someone in the crowd bellowed, that's heaven's punishment. Was it the people of the Gong family who committed many unjust acts, and were finally punished by heaven? What do you mean by that? Chapter 601. The person who spoke suddenly burst into tears, and his face was full of resentment. I am a citizen of Lotus Town. The people of the Gong family are insane. They actually used our people to make corpse soldiers. My poor child and my husband. What? Turning living people into corpse soldiers? Is this true or false? I can testify. I'm from Lotus Town. I can also testify, we can't tolerate the Gong family doing such a perverse thing, so we didn't hesitate to go to all the cities and tell everyone about their evil deeds. Such a tyrant, being burned to death in the fire is their retribution. That's right, this is the Gong family's retribution. It's time for Jingcheng country to change its emperor. The troops stationed outside the city are the Dog Emperor's minions. Let's go tear them apart and avenge our compatriot. Avenge our compatriots. That night, the entire Jingcheng country's imperial capital, Anlong City, becomes a land of war. The army rebelled, the people rose up, and the imperial palace, which represents the pinnacle of power, fell into a sea of fire. It also starts from this moment. The Gong family's regime that has ruled Jingcheng country for hundreds of years begins to collapse. And Gong Qianxue, who is far away in Litian City, is still unaware of all this. The people who caught Shen Jinglin still haven't returned? Gong Qianxue asks Duo Yang, who is kneeling on the ground, with a cold face. Duo Yang hangs her head in fear. Forgive me, princess. This subordinate didn't expect that Bai Chen would be so cunning, directly hiding in the Wuwang Mountains. Moreover, even at night, he won't be attacked by strange beasts. But rest assured, princess, that Bai Chen is already an arrow at the end of its flight. Presumably, this subordinate will soon bring back Shen Jinglin and Bai Chen's bodies. Trash. Gong Qianxue coldly glances at her. You can't even handle a heaven stage and an earth stage. This subordinate is incompetent. Gong Qianxue takes a deep breath. Forget it, I don't want to wait anymore. That immortal spirit body must belong to me. Send an order to Qian Qing, let him speed up the production of corpse soldiers. I want to attack the Ghost Wind Valley immediately. That slut Jun Muyan, and the immortal spirit body that she gave birth to, must belong to me. Yes, princess. After Duo Yang agreed, he was a little hesitant, but princess, the Ghost Wind Valley is famous for being a dead end. It's probably because there's poison smog inside. Even if an innate expert goes in, he'll be engulfed by the poison smog and die. Right now, the combat strength of the corpse soldiers is still too weak. If we attack rashly, I'm afraid. Ha, don't worry, Gong Qianxue sneered, her face filled with a determined coldness. I've already invited senior brother over. That mere poison smog can trap everyone. How can it trap senior brother Jian Feng? At that time, the Ghost Wind Valley will be ours, and that Jun Muyan and her immortal physique will become my, Gong Qianxue's, tonic. Ha! Congratulations, Your Highness. Duo Yang said, once Princess consumes the elixir refined from the immortal spirit body, she will ascend to the immortal realm immediately. At that time, this subordinate. Gong Qianxue glanced at him and said faintly, don't worry, as long as you're loyal to me, I guarantee that I won't treat you unfairly. At that time, I'll have senior brother Jian Feng leave you elixirs. Those elixirs will naturally help you to successfully refine your soul and body. Many thanks, princess. Duo Yang knelt down in excitement. Even if this subordinate goes to the Shozhen continent, I will still be loyal to the princess. Chapter 602. Princess, something bad has happened. Lianhua Town. Lianhua Town. Gong Qianxue frowned and said sternly, what are you shouting for? What happened to Lianhua Town? The man's face was pale. He swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, the people of Lianhua Town have all been released. Those corpse soldiers and Dr. Qian and the others have all been killed. What did you say? Gong Qianxue screamed and her face suddenly became ferocious. What about my golden silkworm larvae? Where's Qian Qing? The man shook his head. Dr. Qian is missing. The corpses of those corpse soldiers have all been burned. The doctors and the mother larvae are also gone. Who? Who did it? What is that trash Qian Qing doing? He has so many corpse soldiers and a primordial realm expert in his hands. How could he still mess things up for me? The man was frightened by Gong Qianxue's twisted and ferocious expression and took a few steps back. Gong Qianxue's face turned green and white. She wondered who dared to behave atrociously in front of her. Suddenly, the shouts of thousands of people resounded in the sky of Litian City. It also clearly reached Gong Qianxue's ears. Gong Qianxue, you're worse than pigs and dogs, cruel and unscrupulous, shameless, wicked, old woman who has committed all sorts of evil and is an accomplice to a villain. Hurry up and get the fuck out here to pay your respects to our young miss. Old woman, come out and pay your respects to our miss. The whole hall was dead silent. Duo Yang and the surrounding guards and maids all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Gong Qianxue's face. But the people outside seemed to be addicted to shouting. One ugly word after another kept coming out of his mouth. Seeing that Gong Qianxue still hadn't come out, they began to change their words. 10 years ago, at the state banquet, Gong Qianxue, you lowly maid, was jealous that the daughter of a noble family was prettier than you, so you found someone to rape that woman and disfigure her. You made her wish she was dead and finally threw herself into the river. Gong Qianxue, don't you think it's heartless? 8 years ago, you took a fancy to a mercenary group and wanted to recruit them for your own use. After failing to bribe them, you despicably poisoned their food and caused them to die tragically in the jungle. Gong Qianxue, tell me, are you a beast in human clothing? 6 years ago, you were jealous that your junior sister was more favored than you and had more talent than you, so you had someone frame her for stealing the sacred object of the sect. In the end, her cultivation was crippled and she was expelled from the Tiandao sect. Gong Qianxue, tell me, are you worse than a pig or a dog? Their curses pierced through the clouds. Gong Qianxue was not the only one who heard them. The people in Litian City and the army under Gong Qianxue's command also heard them. Her expression could no longer be described as ugly. The curses of nearly 1,000 people were like slaps that ruthlessly slapped her face in front of everyone. Just a few days ago, Gong Qianxue, in order to cultivate the zombie soldiers controlled by GU worms, you actually disregarded the lives of the people in Lianhua City and turned them into monsters that were neither human nor ghost. You even used the benevolence of doctors to lure them to Lianhua City to treat the people in the name of a plague. In reality, you planted a mother GU in their bodies and caused them to die after being sucked dry of their flesh and blood. Gong Qianxue, tell me, are you not a lunatic that everyone has the right to punish? Chapter 603. Who do you think you are, actually daring to slander this princess's clean reputation? Guards, capture them for me, tear them to pieces, skin them alive and pull out their tendons. There's a moment of silence in the air. Gong Qianxue abruptly comes back to her senses, only to discover that many soldiers on the city wall are staring at her in a daze. It seems that they've never seen the dignified and elegant princess reveal such a ferocious expression. And the common people of Litian City, attracted by the shouts, are even pointing at her. There's bewilderment in their eyes, as well as fear and disgust. Gong Qianxue comes to her senses in a split second. She's fallen into these treacherous people's evil scheme. In almost a split second, Gong Qianxue puts on a weeping expression. Tears are on her eyelashes, but they won't fall. She looks indescribably pitiful. She looks down at the row of black-clothed people below, bites her lip, and says in a loud voice, "Who are you people? Why are you slandering this princess's clean reputation? Could it be that you're the subordinates of that bandit that this princess annihilated last time? Although this princess was ruthless that day, it was also because you've done too much evil, and killed too many common people." Hearing Gong Qianxue's words, the faces of the surrounding soldiers and common people immediately change. Their original suspicions towards her lessen a lot. Instead, they're full of suspicion towards the group of black-clothed people shouting below. Just as Gong Qianxue is about to say something again, she sees the group of people below opening up a path in unison. A girl in snow-white clothes, holding the hand of a delicate and pretty boy, slowly walks forward. The moment she sees the girl and the boy, Gong Qianxue's pupils suddenly widen. As if it's an instinctive premonition, her gaze firmly falls on that beautiful fairy-like little boy. Without waiting for her to react, the girl's clear voice comes from afar. "Gong Qianxue, haven't you always wanted to find us mother and son? Now that we've delivered ourselves to your door, why don't you seem to welcome us?" Gong Qianxue's line of sight turns and falls on Muyan. When the girl's absolutely beautiful appearance comes into view, Gong Qianxue's pupils slightly contract, and the flames of jealousy and resentment burn fiercely. "Jun, Mu, Yang." Gong Qianxue grits her teeth as she shouts this name. Loathing, fear, and boundless desire. She now knows that Jun Muyan is the woman who was pregnant with the immortal spirit fetus. As long as she eats her child, or even Muyan, she can immediately break through to the pre-celestial stage and ascend to the Xiuzhen continent. This was the ending that Gong Qianxue wanted to see even in her dreams. As long as she could have this woman and her child, Gong Qianxue takes a deep breath, her face slowly revealing a warm and gentle smile. "Dr. Jun, I don't know what misunderstanding there is between us, but you seem to have some hostility towards me. However, Ben Gong has always admired the famous Enchantress of medicine very much. If you don't mind, why don't you come to our Litian city and stay for a while? I'm sure your opinion of me will change. In the eyes of ordinary people in Yenwu continent, Gong Qianxue is a noble and kind princess, and also a talented practitioner with boundless prospects. To be invited by a princess in such a sincere manner, anyone else would have been overwhelmed by the favor. Mu Yang, however, chuckles in a low voice. She raised her head to look at Gong Qianxue and gently brushed away the strands of hair that were floating at the side of her temple. Only then did she unhurriedly say, "Really? Your Highness, do you really not have any hostility towards me?" Chapter 604. Bengong has always admired talented people, especially benevolent and virtuous doctors. As long as you are willing to stay in Litian City for a while, Bengong can give you a lot of rare herbs that you absolutely can't find outside, and I can even let Brother Jianfeng give you a pointer or two. Throwing out such a bait, would she still be afraid that Muyan wouldn't be tempted? However, Muyan's next sentence makes her almost unable to maintain her hypocritical face. Even if, at that time in the fog forest, the sacred beast egg that Princess Qianxue wanted by every means possible was eaten by my spirit pet. Saying that, she raises her hand and grabs a chubby rabbit from behind, shaking it under Gong Qianxue's eyes. "This beast!" Gong Qianxue screams, but immediately realizes that something is wrong. She reluctantly smiles and says, "Dr. Jun must be joking, everyone can fight over the sacred beast egg." Before Gong Qianxue could finish speaking, Muyan's calm and unruffled voice interrupts her. "Even if your Jinhong men in Kaiyang country was destroyed by me, wouldn't your Royal Highness be angry?" Gong Qianxue's face has already begun to distort. Her hands are tightly clenched into fists, her nails piercing into her flesh, and she dryly laughs. "Dr. Jun, what are you talking about? Why can't Bengong understand? What does Jinhong men have to do with Bengong? Is that so? It doesn't matter, that's really great. The princess is really magnanimous." Muyan smiles even more happily. "So, even if I later killed Ghost City's Ghost King Liu Se, destroyed Shen Medical Pavilion, and killed all the corpse soldiers in Lianhua Town, presumably, your Royal Highness wouldn't mind." "Slut." Hearing this, Gong Qianxue couldn't bear it anymore, and she lets out a hysterical roar. "Sure enough, it's you, slut, who ruined all my good thing." Muyan sneers. "Gong Qianxue, you're finally not putting on an act. You should know that if you keep acting like this, I'm going to vomit from disgust. Do you really think that I still don't know who the person who wanted to dig out the child in my belly was?" Gong Qianxue's chest violently heaves up and down, glaring at Muyan. Then, she laughed softly. "So, you already know. In that case, this empress doesn't need to be polite with you anymore. Jun Muyan, you escaped 5 years ago, but you and your child are destined to be stepping stones for Bengong's advancement. What's more," her gaze swept over and landed on Xiaobao, and the smile on her face became more and more arrogant. "Compared to 5 years ago when he was just a newborn, your son is much more nourishing now. This empress still has to thank you for helping this empress raise it for 5 years and letting me eat it properly. Oh, that's right, there's also that sacred beast egg. Since it was eaten by your spiritual pet, I only need to skin your spiritual pet and dig out the sacred beast egg. In any case, this sacred beast egg was originally dug out from the stomach of another foolish woman." The light in Mu Yang's eyes suddenly turns cold, and the killing intent on her body can no longer be concealed. The hatred of her past life and this life surged to the extreme at this moment, making her almost unable to control herself from rushing up and tearing Gong Qianxue to pieces. There was another person who was even faster than her, and her hatred was even deeper. A white light flashed, and Bai Yichen soared up to the sky, fiercely attacking Gong Qianxue. However, Gong Qianxue still hasn't moved. Chapter 605. That was Duo Yang who was at the peak of the Xiantian realm. At the same time, countless men in black rushed out, cutting off Bai Yichen's escape route. Bai Yichen spat out a mouthful of blood as he unleashed the pressure of a peak Xiantian expert. But he didn't seem to feel it at all, and only glared fiercely at Gong Qianxue. "Gong Qianxue, Sitong, and you have no enmity, but for the sake of a spiritual beast egg, you actually cut open her stomach while she was still alive, and crushed her dantian. Are you even human?" Gong Qianxue looked at him disdainfully. "Oh, So you're here to avenge that stupid woman. Hehe, who does that idiot Lin Sitong think she is? She's just a useless woman, yet she dares to snatch the sacred beast egg from this consort. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself for overestimating herself. If she had obediently given the sacred beast egg to this queen might have spared her life. In the end, she said that she wanted to give it to senior marshal brother, and she would rather die than hand over the sacred beast egg. For daring to snatch something from this empress, she deserves it. In the end, she said she wanted to give it to senior brother. Give it to senior brother. Bai Chen's eyes reddened, and hot tears rolled down his cheeks. Sitong, that silly girl, why couldn't she understand? Compared to the sacred beast egg, she was 1,000 times more important to him. Why? Why didn't he follow that silly lass? Why didn't he protect his Sitong, Gong Chenxue? I'll kill you. Bai Chen let out a loud roar as he soared into the sky against Duo Yang's powerful pressure. The wind howled, and the long sword pointed straight at Gong Chenxue. Duo Yang snorted coldly. The steel blade in his hand made a buzzing sound, and a cold light shot out in all directions as it slashed towards Bai Chen. This slash contained all the pressure of a peak inborn expert. If it really hit, Bai Chen would definitely be cut in half. However, just as the blade light was about to touch Bai Chen, the sound of the zither rang out. A ray of light flashed and instantly wrapped around Bai Chen's waist, pulling him back. Duo Yang's blade slashed through the air and he looked down fearfully. The one who made the move was Jun Muyan, a 19-year-old girl, much younger than Gong Chenxue. However, when Bai Chen was swept away just now, it had forcibly blocked the momentum of his blade. This Jun Muyan, just how high is her cultivation? Could it be that he had already reached the innate realm at such a young age? Bai Chen, calm down. Mu Yang looks at Bai Chen who is kneeling in front of her, her voice indescribably cold and indifferent. I hate Gong Chenxue more than you do, but being impulsive will not allow you to take revenge, it will only make all of your efforts fall short of success. The Shun father, Dr. Song, and Chen Qingfeng are all still in Gong Chenxue's hands. Even in her dreams, Muyan yearns for revenge. However, her hatred would never be built on the basis of sacrificing the important people around her. Bai Chen lowered his head guiltily and said in a trembling voice, I'm sorry, I almost ruined everything. Uncle Rabbit Lantern. Xiaobao suddenly reached out and pulled Bai Chen up. Don't be sad. Bad women will definitely get what they deserve. Bai Chen looked at Xiaobao's serious little face, and a faint smile appeared on his pale face. Soon after, his expression became extremely calm, and he slowly walked behind Mu Yang. Gong Chenxue smiles coldly, her malicious eyes staring at Mu Yang, then she lightly waves her hand. In a split second, hundreds of black-robed men leaped onto the city wall. Each of these black-clothed men had a cultivation base of heaven rank and above. Chapter 606. Under the thousands of soldiers and horses, Mu Yang and the hundreds of people around her were like a small boat in the ocean, easily capsized by the raging waves. Seeing this scene, Gong Chenxue bursts into laughter. Jun Muyan, in Bengong's eyes, you are just an ant. If Bengong wants to pinch you to death, then Bengong will pinch you to death. If Bengong wants to eat your child, then Bengong will eat your child. Right now, I'm high and mighty, while you're as low as dust. What qualifications do you have to talk to me? Mu Yang raises the corner of her mouth and is about to speak. Yu Yang's face is cold as she suddenly steps forward. Miss, please wait a moment. Isn't it too insulting for you to raise your head and talk to a beast like Gong Chenxue? Miss, please give this subordinate a quarter of an hour. Mu Yan stares blankly, unable to react. Yu Yang waved her hand. Over 100 soldiers of the Heavenly Secret Battalion walked out. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, these secret division members actually used materials from the ground to build a tall observation tower in just 15 minutes. The lookout tower was simple and crude, and only a dozen people could stand on it. However, it was just a little higher than the city wall that Gong Chenxue was standing on. Yu Yang triumphantly shoots a glance at the ashen-faced Gong Chenxue, and cupping her hands towards Muyan, she says, I ask Miss to go to a higher place. Let's see how that vicious woman is going to look down on you. Each and every one of the people of the Tianji unit also feels honored. They raise their necks and proudly look at the people of the ink camp, saying in a loud voice, "Miss and Little Master, please ascend the platform." Mu Yang is almost amused by this group of subordinates. It was hard for them to be able to cause trouble for Gong Qianxue in such a place at such a time. But it had to be said that looking at Gong Qianxue's unsightly expression, her mood was very good. With a light leap, Mu Yang flew up to the platform with Xiao Bao in her arms. Almost at the same time, Yang Haotian, Feng Haitang, Bai Ichen, and Yu Yang also led some people and jumped up. Gong Qianxue coldly looked at Muyan and sneered, "Jun Muyan, do you think that by building a high platform, you can confront Bengong? With just a few hundred of you? Don't tell me you're daydreaming." Mu Yang raises her eyes, unhurriedly saying, "Gong Qianxue, you really don't need to disguise yourself anymore. In front of your people, you don't mind exposing your true face at all?" Gong Qianxue's face darkened even more as she looked down at the edge of the city wall. Her actions just now had indeed caused the commoners to look at her suspiciously. Heh, so what if they have doubts? They're just a bunch of stupid commoners. With just a few casual words, he would be deceived. Gong Qianxue straightens her expression, and with an awe-inspiring righteous expression, she says in a clear voice, "Citizens of Litian City, this Jun Muyan is a spy sent by the Ghost City and Kaiyang country to our Jingcheng country. She intends to disturb our Jingcheng country's imperial court. Therefore, I must exterminate them today. Could it be that you would rather believe an outsider than me, Gong Qianxue? After all, Gong Qianxue was the princess of Jingcheng country. In Jingcheng country, especially in Litian City, her power and influence wasn't something ordinary people could compare with." The words that the ink camp people just shouted, and the conversation between Gong Qianxue and Jun Muyan, really made the common people have doubts. But it's only suspicion. Compared to a stranger like Jun Muyan, they certainly trust Gong Qianxue more. Chapter 607. Muyan clicks her tongue and sighs, "I can't help but admire the princess's spirit of pretending to be a white lotus. Of course, I know that the people of Litian City won't believe me, but I don't know if they believe me or not. What about the people of Lotus Town?" As soon as her voice falls, Feng Haitang immediately whistles. The next moment, the people of the Everlasting Camp immediately surround and protect several people of Lotus Town. Each of these people is the most virtuous and respected elder of Lotus Town, and one of them is even the city lord. Lotus Town and Litian City both belong to Jingcheng country, so some people have seen the city lord of Lotus Town. Are they really the people of Lotus Town? How could they appear here? The city lord of Lotus Town raises his head and glares fiercely at Gong Qianxue. After a long while, he chokes with sobs. "Gong Qianxue, how can you be so ruthless, so sinister? We are obviously all your people, but you actually use us as containers to raise GU, puppets, and so cruelly slaughter the people. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" All the people of Litian City. Another citizen of Lotus Town shouts, "We saw it with our own eyes. The people around us and our relatives were killed by Qian Qing, who was sent by this poisonous woman. We watched helplessly as our loved ones turned into a monster that was neither human nor ghost, yet we were powerless to do anything about it. Don't believe this venomous woman, otherwise, what happened to us today will be your tomorrow. Gong Qianxue, a venomous woman like you is simply not worthy to be our princess, and even less worthy to rule Jingcheng country. You will definitely suffer retribution." If the words of Muyan and the people of the ink camp just now only made the people of Litian City suspicious, at this moment, they look at Gong Qianxue with astonishment and vigilance. Because these words weren't said by an outsider like Muyan, but by the people of Lotus Town, their compatriots. Everyone speaks of these things in such a vivid manner. Could it really be false? Gong Qianxue's face distorts in anger. "Jun Muyan, you are really vicious. You actually colluded with the people of Lotus Town to frame Bengong." "Frame you?" Mu Yang revealed a mocking smile. "Your Highness, don't tell me that you don't know this Qian Qing." As he spoke, someone immediately dragged Qian Qing, who was as thin as a match and had a bulging belly, onto the stage. Seeing Qian Qing's bulging belly, Gong Qianxue's nostrils shrank. She almost immediately guessed what was inside Qian Qing's stomach. That was the larva of the golden silkworm mother Gu. This was the only hope she had left to nurture corpse soldiers. At this time, Qian Qing is already living a life worse than death. He raises his skull-like face and looks at Muyan with a pleading look, only begging her to give him a quick death. The pain of having so many mother Gu gnawing away at his flesh and blood was indescribable. That was truly the torture of the 18 levels of purgatory. Mu Yang sneered at him. Miracle Dr. Qian, when you placed the Gu worm into someone else's body, did you ever think that you would have such a day? Woo! Woo woo woo! Qian Qing's tongue was cut off and she couldn't speak, so she could only beg for mercy with tears and snot all over her face. You want to die? Qian Qing nodded desperately, uttering our sounds. Chapter 608. Her line of sight turns and falls on Gong Qianshue's face. I wonder if Her Highness the Princess would be reluctant to part with these mother Gu dead. Gong Qianshue's complexion alternates between green and white, simply wishing she could tear Jun Muyan apart. Of course she wants to take back the mother Gu of the golden silkworm Gu, that's the only larva she has left. However, the common people of Litian City are watching. If she does this, the reputation that she has accumulated and her prestige in Jingcheng country will be completely destroyed. Gong Qianshue opens her mouth, wanting to speak. She hears Muyan sneer. It seems that Her Highness the Princess is merciful, allowing you to die. Then, Haotian, burn everything down for me along with the Gu. You dare. Gong Qianshue finally couldn't bear it and roars. All the gentleness and kindness on her face has disappeared without a trace. Only a cold cruelty remains. Jun Muyan, that's my mother Gu, you dare to destroy my mother Gu. Whoosh. As soon as Gong Qianshue says this, the common people of Litian City boil up in a split second. It's actually true. Her Highness the Princess is really using the flesh and blood of the common people to raise Gu. How could a woman with such a heart of snakes and scorpions be worthy of being our princess? Gong Qianshue coldly glances at the common people who are speaking, her face filled with madness and ruthlessness. You lowly commoners, it's your honor to be a stepping stone on my road to success. Duo Yang, go and take back the golden silkworm Gu for me. There aren't enough people in Lotus City, so I'll use these lowly commoners of Litian City to raise my golden silkworm Gu. As for these lowly commoners, if anyone dares to act rashly, kill them without mercy. At this moment, the dagger is revealed. All of Gong Qianshue's ugly and ruthless true colors have been exposed. Just as the common people of Litian City are about to riot, more than half of them are injured by the rushing black-clothed men and soldiers. In their hearts, they hate this once revered princess to the extreme, but there's nothing they can do. Gong Qianshue's gaze has already fallen on the opposite tower. Jun Muyan, do you think that you can use these insignificant lowly commoners to kidnap me and make me let you go? What a joke. You're just a bunch of useless trash. After today, I'll naturally make sure that they won't be able to say a single word. The same goes for all of you. Seeing that your medical skills are quite excellent, I'll let your body incubate my final golden silkworm Gu. As he spoke, Duo Yang's figure had already leaped high into the air. Like a bolt of lightning, he charged towards the tall watchtower. In a split second, the wind howled and the pressure of an inborn expert enveloped everyone on the pagoda. Yu Yang, Old Dao, and the others, who had low cultivations, turned pale. Their bodies swayed, as if they could not hold on any longer. On the city wall, Gong Qianshue revealed a proud expression. She was waiting for Duo Yang to slaughter everyone on this tower. She's waiting for Jun Muyan to kneel in front of her, crying and begging for mercy, but she can only watch helplessly as her own son is refined into an elixir and eaten by herself. Just as Duo Yang's hand was about to grab Qian Qing. Suddenly, there was a hum, and the sound of strings moving rang out. Duo Yang suddenly felt a burning pain on the back of his hand. The next moment, his eyes widened in shock. He saw that on Qian Qing's body, a dark blue flame had unexpectedly sprang up, swallowing his whole person. Qian Qing revealed an expression of relief. But the Gu in his abdomen began to rush left and right, issuing a unique, ear-piercing cry. Chapter 609. However, it's still too late. The speed at which the flames burned was extremely fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, Qian-Qing is burned to ashes. The golden silkworm mother Ji-Yu in his stomach also didn't escape. The anger in Duo Yang's eyes is almost gushing out. With a wave of the long sword in his hand, the sword that can split mountains and split stones is about to completely cut down this temporarily built observation tower. However, his sword hasn't been swung down yet. Suddenly, he hears a melodious sound of a zither. Immediately after, there's a sharp pain in his chest. Puff puff puff. That's the sound of metal piercing flesh. Duo Yang can feel that all the internal force and vitality in his body are quickly flowing away with this piercing sound. He lowers his head in disbelief. What he sees are the 7 zither strings that have run through his body. One of them has directly pierced his heart. The zither strings are slowly stained with his blood, and then emit a colorful light. It's very beautiful, but it's like the light of the Grim Reaper's scythe. Duo Yang stiffly raises his head and looks in Muyan's direction. Not far away, the beautiful girl smiles at him. Her smile is charming and languid, but with a holiness that can't be profaned. It's like a high and mighty fairy of the 9th heaven, looking at an insignificant ant with pity and ridicule. Buzz. With a sound, the girl's slender fingers move in the air. In a split second, the 7 zither strings come out and return to the girl's body, transforming into 7 swords of different colors, gently circling around. Chijue Sword Spirit, the top skill of the Shun Musician Level 3. A peak pre-celestial expert is killed in one blow. Bang! Duo Yang's body falls from the high platform and heavily falls on the yellow sand, raising a cloud of dust. After a moment of silence, the Nether Flame Army lets out a warm cheer. On the city wall, everyone is deathly pale. Gong Qianshue's eyes widen in disbelief, almost unable to believe what's happening in front of her. That's Duo Yang the most capable assistant with the highest cultivation by her side. He has been at the peak of the pre-celestial for decades, and is only a step away from forging his body and refining his soul. But Duo Yang is dead. Moreover, he died in the hands of a woman younger than herself, Muyan. How is this possible? If that's the case, just how high is Jun Muyan's cultivation? Gong Qianshue grits her teeth. The jealousy and unwillingness in her heart almost engulfs her whole soul. She should be the #1 genius of Yanwu continent. Why did this slut Muyan appear? To ruin her good deed, to rob her reputation? Why couldn't that slut, Jun Muyan, obediently let her dig out the child in her belly 5 years ago, and let her refine it into an elixir to eat? Otherwise, she would be the one at the pinnacle of the innate realm. No. Even if there is no golden silkworm, that immortal spiritual body and Muyan, she absolutely must obtain them. As long as she could take the elixir refined by the immortal physique, she would be able to refine her soul and body. What could mere corpse soldiers do to her? Gong Qianshue suddenly took a step forward and roared, "Soldiers of Jingcheng country, listen to my order. Everyone around the city wall, except for Jun Muyan and her son, kill them all without mercy. Whoever captures Jun Muyan and her lowly spawn alive, Ben Gong will bestow upon him the title of Prince Regent, General Wei Yuan. Henceforth, in Jingcheng country, he would be below 1 person and above 10,000 people." Hearing Gong Qianshue's order. Chapter 610. Gong Qianshue's actions just now really hurt the hearts of the people of Jingcheng country. Furthermore, many of these soldiers were recruited from Litian City. But the other half, after hearing Gong Qianshue's shout, their eyes lit up, and they immediately readied themselves for action. A moment later, he rushed toward the observation deck. He watches as tens of thousands of soldiers surround Jun Muyan and the others as well as the people from the Ink camp. Gong Qianshue's ugly face finally revealed a carefree expression. So what if Jun Muyan's cultivation is higher? 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. She could fight 10 of them, but could she fight 100 or 1,000 of them? Surrounded by thousands of soldiers, these hundreds of people were like ants that could be squashed to death at any time. Seeing this scene, Mu Yang smiled. He casually changed his posture and sat cross-legged. His fingers lightly moved on the strings, producing a pleasant sound. She raised her face and asked faintly, "Are you guys ready?" "Of course." Are Yu Yang, Yang Haotian, and Feng Haitang all kneel before Muyan, their faces brimming with eagerness and excitement. Are Yu Yang's eyes shine brightly as she says, "My Nether Flame Army's 3 camps, Ink Camp, Heavenly Secret Camp, and Longevity Camp, have been operating for so long, and have consumed so many of Miss Precious elixirs and drafts, all for this day." This was the day when the Nether Flame Army truly made their appearance. It was also an unforgettable day for the people of the world to remember the Nether Flame Army from afar. Mu Yang looks at the excitement and fighting spirit on the faces of the three, and the corner of her mouth hooks up into a shallow smile. "Go, it's time to let Gong Qianxue know how many gifts I've prepared for her." Are Yu Yang and the other two received the order and each walked towards 3 different directions of the lookout tower. Then, they used their fingers to press their lips together and let out different whistles. On the city wall, Gong Qianxue is about to order Jing Cheng's army to attack. Suddenly, the ground rumbled and shook. The rumbling of horse hooves, shouts, and footsteps came from all directions. Gong Qianxue looked over in shock. From the east, west, and south, there was a huge group of people galloping over. After a short period of a few tens of breaths, the army had stopped outside Heaven Departing City. The number of troops in this group isn't actually large, but they've spread out in a large circle, faintly encircling Jing Cheng's army. Soon, a man in the east jumped off his horse and knelt on the ground. Black Camp's Guan Hu, leading 2,600 elite cavalry, reporting to Miss and Commander Yang. In the south, a slender woman jumped off her horse and knelt on the ground. Heavenly Secret Battalion's Fang Jingya, leading 1,700 people, reporting to Miss and Commander Ruyan. In the west, a hale and hearty old man in his 50s jumped off his horse and knelt on the ground. Longevity Camp's Old Dao, leading 1,900 men, reporting to young Mistress and Commander Feng. As soon as the three finished their reports, the thousands of soldiers behind them roared in unison. "The Nether Flame Army is invincible. Long live the young miss, long live the young master." Gong Qianxue stared fixedly at the scene in front of her. Listening to the shouts of the people below, her eyeballs almost popped out. How was this possible? Jun Muyan is a woman with no power, no influence, no background. How could she gather such a powerful army? The cultivation of every soldier here had even reached the Xian grade. They're even more powerful than her Jing Cheng's army. Jun Muyan, on what basis does she have? But very quickly, Gong Qianxue calms down. Because no matter how powerful this army is, it's still less than 10,000. Chapter 611. However, if she wanted to kill these people in a short period of time, her army would definitely suffer heavy losses. But if she captures Muyan alive, these people might be of use to her. Gong Qianxue rolled her eyes, a sinister light flashing in her eyes. She raised her hand and shouted, "Wait." Hearing Gong Qianxue's order, Jing Cheng's army immediately stops. "Jun Muyan, do you really want to go against me?" Gong Qianxue sneered, "Don't forget, your foster father is still in my hands. Or are you saying that you don't even care about your adoptive father's life?" While speaking, a black-clothed man immediately carries the disheveled and haggard Shen father, Shinicheng, to the top of the city wall. Gong Qianxue slowly walked to Shinicheng's side and smiled. "Master Shen, do you see that? That's your adopted daughter. She overestimated herself and wanted to go against me, but I am magnanimous and can give her a chance. As long as you can convince her to surrender to Ben Gong will naturally give everyone in the Chen family a way out. Otherwise, just wait for Ben Gong to lead an army to flatten your Chen family and make it so that your Chen family will never have any descendant." Hearing this, the Shen father raises his eyelids, which are almost glued together by blood, and looks towards Gong Qianxue. Just when Gong Qianxue still wanted to say something, she suddenly spat on Gong Qianxue. "Stop dreaming. My Chen family's people would rather die than surrender." "Yang Yang." Shen father lifts his head and looks at Muyan on the observation platform. He says in a hoarse voice, "Yang Yang, don't worry about Daddy. Daddy is already old, his death is not to be regretted. You must never yield to this vicious woman." "Piak." He ruthlessly slaps the Shen father's face, causing one side of his face to quickly swell up, and fresh blood overflows from the corner of the Shun father's mouth. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Then don't blame me for being impolite. Gong Qianxue said in a cold voice. Men, chop off his hands and feet for me. Gong Qianxue, you dare. On the opposite observation deck, Muyin walks step by step to the edge, coldly watching this side. The pressure of a peak innate expert was suddenly released. Gong Qianxue felt as if her blood had frozen. The man in black beside her was shivering, and his face was pale. For a moment, he couldn't move a single step. Gong Qianxue revealed an aghast and jealous expression, hurriedly taking out a medicinal pill and swallowing it. Then he looks at Muyin and says darkly, Jun Muyin, as you can see, your foster father is now in my hands. Not only him, but also those old undying doctors. Their life and death are all under my control. If you know what's good for you, you'd better surrender obediently. Otherwise, I'll chop off your adoptive father's arms and legs and slice off his flesh piece by piece. The sword in Gong Qianxue's hand is firmly pressed against the Shun father's neck. Then he looks at Muyin with a sneer. However, Jun Muyin's panic-stricken, angry, shocked, and pained appearance didn't appear. Her expression was frighteningly cold, and there was not a trace of emotion on her beautiful face. Gong Qianxue, you've given me such a big gift. If I don't reciprocate, wouldn't it be a pity? Gong Qianxue stares blankly. Jun Muyin, what are you saying? Could it be that he has lost his mind? Muyin claps her hands together and lightly claps them. Soon, someone from the ink camp escorts a group of people up. These people's appearance is really similar to the Shun fathers. Each and every one of them is disheveled and dirty, extremely haggard. Chapter 612. Seeing these people appear, Gong Qianxue simply couldn't believe her eyes. Imperial father, imperial mother, imperial brother. Why are you here? Shui, quickly save us. When Gong Yanghai saw Gong Qianxue, he immediately cried and shouted with a face full of snot and tears. The other children of Jingcheng country's royal family are also wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. They're begging Gong Qianxue not to go against Muyin again, and quickly save them. Gong Qianxue looks at Muyin in shock. You slut, what did you do? His voice suddenly became louder, filled with endless fear and disbelief. Mu Yang smiled slightly, her expression cold and mocking. Nothing much, it's just that, Your Highness, don't you like to plunder other people's houses? So, to return the favor, I also went to the princess's house to make a copy. Your Highness, your family members are all here now. As for that magnificent Jingcheng country's imperial palace, I'm afraid it's already turned into a pile of scorched earth. No. This is impossible. Gong Qianxue roars hysterically, her expression like a madman. That is my Jingcheng country's imperial palace. There are 12 pre-celestial powerhouses inside, and thousands of troops and horses guarding inside and outside the city. How could you possibly capture my imperial father and imperial mother? How could you possibly burn the imperial palace? Jingcheng country's imperial palace, that magnificent palace, is the place that belongs to her in the future. One day, she will ascend the throne as empress there and unify the Yanwu continent. How could it be burned down by that slut Jun Muyin? Muyin's cold eyes look at the almost insane Gong Qianxue. Gong Qianxue, didn't you say that you have a lot of hostages in your hands that can threaten me? In that case, let's see who has more hostages and who has more chips. She lightly plucked the zither strings. The next moment, the people from the ink camp immediately take a step forward and grab all the members of Jingcheng country's royal family. 10 slaps landed on the faces of Gong Yanghai and the others. Pa, 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 pa. These 10 slaps could be said to be merciless. In an instant, the faces of Gong Yanghai and the others swelled like pig heads. Some of them even had their teeth knocked out. His ears were filled with the painful wails of the Gong family. Mu Yang's face is cold and solemn. From now on, the pain you inflicted on my father and other friends, I will return it to your family tenfold, 100-fold. If you slap my father once, I'll return 10 slaps to every member of your Gong family. If you chop off one of my father's hands, I'll chop off all the limbs of your Gong family. If you cut off a piece of my father's flesh, I will cut off the flesh of your parents piece by piece. The afternoon sun shone on the girl's beautiful face. However, even though it was clearly such a bright sunlight, it did not give off a trace of warmth. All that was left was cold hatred and determination. The hatred between her and Gong Qianxue in her past life and this life. The number was innumerable, and the retribution was endless. Today was the day of the end. Gong Qianxue, if you don't believe me, you can give it a try. There was a dead silence in the hall. The blades of the ink camp's people are pressed against the necks of Gong Yanghai and the others, revealing a malevolent smile. Dog Emperor, tell me, will your precious daughter save you? I can't wait to cut off your hands and feet. The cold blade was pressed against his shoulder, cutting through his clothes and flesh. Chapter 613. Still not releasing Jun Muyan's father. As the Emperor of Jingcheng country, we order you to release him immediately. On Litian City's side, everyone's eyes are on Gong Qianxue. Especially the soldiers of Jingcheng country. Princess. Hurry and save them, that's the Emperor and Empress. Yes, Princess. The other side will do what they say, we can't ignore His Majesty's life. Gong Qianxue grits her teeth, her eyes spitting fire as she looks at Muyan, as if she can't wait to rush over and tear her apart. Jun Muyan, you despicable slut, you actually used Bengong's parents to threaten Bengong? Who is the slut scolding? Are you Yang sneers? The princess seems to have turned her head and forgotten who the hostage was. What's more, isn't the conditions given by our miss very reasonable? Everyone has hostages in their hands, release them together. It's very fair, no one will suffer a loss. Yes, yes. Very fair. Swear. Gong Qianxue, what are you still doing? Gong Yanghai shouts, quickly order for them to be released. Gong Qianxue's eyes fall on Gong Yanghai, Gong Qianye, and the others. Suddenly, the anger on her face fades little by little, slowly turning into a cold ruthlessness. What's the use of these wastes? As her parents and brothers, not only can they not help her, they will only hold her back. That's right, what's the big deal if these wastes die? Isn't Jingcheng country still hers? She can even ascend the throne more smoothly, because she's the only one left in the royal family of Jingcheng country. Ha, ha ha ha. Jun Muyan, that slut, thinks that she can threaten her. She doesn't know that she's paving the stepping stone for her. Bring the bow and arrows. Gong Qianxue suddenly shouts and reaches behind her. Soon, a black-clothed man hands over the bow and arrows. She knocked the arrow and pointed it at Gong Yanghai and the others. Gong Yanghai's eyes widen. Gong Qianxue, you evil creature, what are you doing? No way. Are you? Yang cried out in alarm. Gong Qianxue has actually become deranged to this extent. Those are her parents and relatives are. Even Yang Haotian, who has always been indifferent, also shows a shocked expression. Only Mu Yang wasn't surprised in the slightest. Instead, the corners of her mouth curled up to reveal a wisp of dense ridicule. Yes. She should have known. Gong Qianxue, this deranged woman, would not have the slightest bit of conscience. He had thought that she would at least care about his parents' lives. But he didn't expect her to be vicious to such an extent. For the sake of his own future, he would rather kill his own parents with his own hand. Imperial father, imperial mother. Gong Qianxue is unhurried. Her voice doesn't have a trace of the gentle and virtuous gentleness that she pretends to have in the past, leaving only cruelty and heartlessness. It's not that your daughter doesn't want to save you, but that slut Jun Muyan is too cunning. Your daughter absolutely cannot let them succeed. Don't worry, after you die, your daughter will definitely avenge you. Swish. Before he could finish his words, an arrow pierced through the air. Without waiting for the people of the ink camp to react, it has already pierced through the chest of the Empress of Jingcheng country. Her almond-shaped eyes were wide open as she stared at her daughter in disbelief. After a long time, she collapsed unwillingly. He breathed his last. Swish, swish, swish. The second, third, and fourth arrows were released one after another. Chapter 614. At the same time, he lets out a beast-like angry roar. Gong Qianxue, you evil creature, killing your father and mother like this, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning and retribution? Gong Qianxue lifts the corner of her mouth, smiling faintly. Retribution? This consort is a woman of destiny. I will only climb to the peak and rule over everyone. How could there be any retribution? Imperial father, just obediently go, don't worry about your daughter anymore. When your daughter becomes empress, I will definitely make Zui Feng the retired emperor. Whoosh! Another arrow mixed with powerful internal force shoots out, instantly piercing Gong Yanhai's chest. He holds the arrow in his chest, shaking it unwillingly, and lets out a roar before his death. Jing Cheng country's army, listen to my order, kill the traitor. Gong! Qianxue! Bang! Gong Yanhai's corpse falls to the yellow ground, but his eyes are wide open, unwaveringly staring at Gong Qianxue above, as if he wants to swallow her alive. He died with everlasting regret. From the beginning to the end, Jun Muyan and the Nether Flame army just watch Gong Qianxue's frenzied performance, not participating in it. However, looking at the woman on the city gate tower, who looks like a peach, but has a heart like a snake and scorpion, they only feel a chill. How could a person be vicious to this extent? Even the lives of her own biological parents, she doesn't care at all. Ha 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 ha. Gong Qianxue puts away the arrow in her hand, her whole person bursting with energy, insolent and proud. Jun Muyan, now, the chips in your hands are completely gone, but your father's life is still in my hands. I'd like to see what other methods you have to fight against me. Muyan slightly frowns, not speaking. Yu Yang anxiously says, Miss, what should we do? Why don't we rush forward and rescue Master? Muyan shakes her head, rejecting this plan. Because Gong Qianxue's blade is too close to Shenfather. A little carelessness, and Shenfather might lose his life on the spot. Gong Qianxue can disregard her father's life. But Muyan can't. What's more, Dr. Song and the others haven't been rescued yet. Gong Qianxue, tell me, what do you want? Muyan coldly asks. This time, the situation could be said to be completely reversed. The expression on Gong Qianxue's face became even more savage and carefree as she said loudly, I want you to chop off your wrists right now, cripple your qi and cultivation, then come over and become my captive. I wonder if you cherish your own life more than your father's. Ha ha ha. How dare you? You want to cripple Mrs. Cultivation? Dream on. Hearing Gong Qianxue's words, the entire Nether Flame army exploded. Yang Haotian and the others revealed ominous glints in their eyes, wishing that they could fly over right now and dismember Gong Qianxue's corpse into 1,000 pieces. The Shun father has a face full of shame as he resolutely runs towards the blade, wanting to mutilate himself in exchange for Muyan's victory. However, Gong Qianxue grabbed his hair and stepped on him pathetically. Jun Muyan, I'll count to 3. If you haven't crippled your own cultivation and chopped off your hands, then don't blame me for messing up your father's qi and chopping off his 4 limbs. 1. 2. Muyan takes a step forward. Okay, however, what's even faster than her is an ice-cold, but crisp, little childish voice, I'll be your captive. The air froze in a split second. Muyan jerks her head back, looking at her baby son behind her. The people of the ink camp also look over, revealing an aghast expression. Chapter 6:15. Xiao Bao didn't look at her, but walked step by step to the edge of the lookout, looking at Gong Qianxue in the distance. If I were to be a captive, I should be better than mother. Young master, little master, what nonsense are you talking about? How could you put yourself in danger? Xiao Bao glanced at them coldly. He clearly didn't release any pressure, but he was born with the temperament of a monarch. In an instant, everyone on the observation deck was speechless. On the city wall, when Gong Qianxue saw Xiao Bao walking over, her eyes suddenly lit up, as if there was a burning flame of greed burning in them. Immortal physique, that was the immortal physique. She giggled. Are you really willing to become my captive? Jun Morchen, come back here. Mu Yang's complexion turned deathly pale. She took a step forward, as if she wanted to pull Xiao Bao back. However, Xiao Bao turned around to look at her and murmured, Mother, Xiao Bao can't just watch you hurt yourself. After saying that, without waiting for Mu Yang to stop him, his small figure had already soared into the sky, and then steadily landed on the opposite city wall. The distance between the watchtower and the city wall was actually quite far. Xiao Bao was only a 4 or 5-year-old child, yet he was able to fly over effortlessly. This immediately shocked many people. But Gong Qianxue was not surprised at all. Because back in the Misty Forest, she had already witnessed this child's shocking talent. A 4-year-old beginner heaven rank. He was only 1 or 2 small realms lower than her. At that time, Gong Qianxue was still full of shock and amazement, but now she didn't feel it was strange at all. That was a celestial physique. Wasn't it a given that he had such talent? And it was precisely because of the immortal physique's outstanding talent that her cultivation was able to undergo such a drastic change after she swallowed it. Looking at the little child who had landed in front of her, Gong Qianxue couldn't help but swallow her saliva. "Why aren't you coming over? Come over to my side." Xiaobao frowned and said in a grown-up tone, "Don't try to trick me. I'm using myself to exchange for Grandpa. If you want me to go over, release my grandfather first. Otherwise, I will immediately jump down from here." Gong Qianxue glances at the Shun father at her feet. Indeed, compared to the immortal physique, this old fart Shinicheng was useless. As long as she has the immortal spirit body, how could Jun Muyin ignore her own son? Gong Qianxue gave her subordinate a look. Immediately, 2 innates and 4 to 5 heaven-rank black-clothed men surrounded Xiao Bao. Someone even grabbed little Bao's arm to prevent him from jumping off the tower. Xiao Bao obediently didn't resist, but his big blue eyes stubbornly looked at Gong Qianxue, waiting for her to fulfill the agreement. Gong Qianxue chuckles lowly, lifting her foot to give the Shun father a kick, directly kicking him down from the city gate tower. With the immortal physique, what use would Shinicheng have? What's more, she still has Jun Muyin's subordinates and dozens of doctors in her hand. Gong Qianxue grinned maliciously as she walked towards Xiao Bao step by step. "All right, little friend, I've already fulfilled my promise and released him. Now, it's time for you to come into my arms." She walked over to Xiao Bao and reached out to pull him into her arms. He had already prepared the elixir that his senior brother had given him. Once this elixir was taken, even a pre-celestial powerhouse would be powerless from head to toe, unable to use internal force. After all, she hadn't forgotten that Xiao Bao was a heaven rank expert. Chapter 616. Just as her hand is about to touch Xiao Bao's arm, Xiao Bao's little face suddenly lifts up, revealing a delicate snow-jade complexion, and a pair of clear and cold blue eyes with a hint of ridicule. "Auntie, you're so much older than my mother, and you still call yourself an older sister. Don't you have any shame?" Gong Qianxue's face suddenly stiffens. There's a roar in her mind, only the words auntie, old, reverberate in her mind. Soon after, she sees the little figure in front of her soar up to the sky, and ruthlessly slaps her on the chest. Gong Qianxue only feels that the internal force of 15 kilograms is like a boulder pressing down on her chest. She gives a muffled groan, and suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. Quickly catch this little bastard for me." A hysterical scream pierces the sky. The black-clothed men on top of the city wall all fly towards Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao coldly snorts in disdain, and with a fierce stomp of his feet, he soars into the sky. His little body flies up into the air. Immediately after, he sees a white light shoot out from the direction of the watchtower, wrapping around his waist and directly pulling him back. Xiao Bao throws himself into Mu Yang's arms all of a sudden, hugging her neck and gently rubbing against it. Soon after, he raises his head, his big eyes flickering, revealing an expression of seeking praise. "Nyang Qin, was Xiao Bao's performance good?" "Baby, you're amazing." Mu Yang isn't stingy with her praise, and kisses him on his tender little cheek. "Thank you for saving grandfather, Nyang Qin is proud of you." Xiao Bao's lips are lightly pursed, but the tips of his eyebrows and the corners of his eyes are slightly raised, carrying a rarely seen childlike cheerfulness. Mu Yang tightly hugs the baby in her arms, and the fear in her heart slowly recedes. Even though she knew what her baby was going to do the moment Xiao Bao came out, and she also knew that her baby would definitely succeed. But by the nature of a mother and son, when Xiao Bao flew to the top of the opposite city wall, her heart had almost jumped out of her throat. She was afraid that her baby would suffer even a little bit of harm. Fortunately, her Xiao Bao, her child, is even more formidable and outstanding than she had imagined. "Yang Yang, Xiaobao, I'm sorry, I've dragged you down. Shun Cheng, who was rescued by the people from the ink camp, shows a guilty expression. Mu Yang crouches down and feeds him another elixir. She softly says, Father, we are relatives, family. There's no such thing as implicating or not. You have to take good care of your body. Big Brother is still waiting for you to return to Hellflame Valley. Good. Good. Yang Yang, I really didn't expect that you would grow to this stage one day. Tears streamed down Shinicheng's old face, and he warned Mu Yang to be careful before he was sent away. Mu Yang looks at Gong Chenxue, who is so angry that she's about to faint. She chuckles. How does it feel to have your internal organs injured by a 4-year-old child? Gong Chenxue. Ha 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 ha, saying that Yanwu continent's #1 genius is simply the biggest joke. You can't even beat our little master. Exactly. In the future, don't call yourself the #1 genius. Call yourself the #1 idiot or the #1 old hag. TSK, TSK, TSK. She's so much older and uglier than our miss, yet she still has the nerve to call herself big sister. Ayo, I'm getting goosebumps all over my body. Ha 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 ha, Gong Chenxue simply wants to go crazy. Several times, she wants to throw caution to the wind and rush out, but she's held back by her subordinates. Chapter 617. Someone come. Bring that group of doctors and Jun Muyan's subordinates here. Slut, you think that after rescuing Shinicheng, I won't be able to do anything to you? Don't forget, I still have a lot of hostages in my hands. This time, I'd like to see how you're going to save him, slut. Very soon, dozens more people are dragged up. Each and every one of these people has disheveled hair, bloody noses and swollen faces, their faces hard to distinguish. But just by looking at the clothes they're wearing, you can recognize that they're Dr. Song and the others, as well as the soldiers of the ink camp, as well as the young staff of the Junji Medical Center. Gong Chenxue's eyes are filled with crazy hatred. She doesn't even give Muyan the same mental torture she did when she questioned the Shun father just now. Instead, she directly drags a person over, and cuts off his hands with a knife. Soon after, the blade is pressed against the man's neck, and she lets out an ear-piercing laugh. Jun Muyan, do you see that? These people are still in my hands. Don't tell me you don't care about their lives. Could it be that you have the heart to watch these innocent people die for you? Muyan smiles faintly, and carelessly says, Really? I really want to see it. Gong Chenxue suddenly widens her eyes, as if she doesn't believe that Muyan would say such words. Good, good, it seems that you really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Gong Chenxue bellows, and at the same time, the knife in her hand falls down, chopping off the head of the man in her hands. Cut off half of their hands and feet for me. Woo, woo. The dozen or so people who are caught simultaneously let out painful groans, but they don't know why they can't speak. But Gong Chenxue has already been completely overwhelmed by anger at this time, and she simply doesn't notice that anything is wrong. As soon as she gives the order, the dozen or so heads thud to the ground. Gong Chenxue's face is splattered with blood, and she grins nastily. Do you see that, Jun Muyan? These people died for you. If you still don't surrender, Ben Gong will also kill the remaining half. These people have pledged their loyalty to you to the death. Let them die innocently for you. Do you have a conscience? Heh. Muyan lets out a low laugh. Gong Chenxue, even your conscience feels sorry. How could I feel sorry? After all, these people aren't loyal to me, but you. No matter what, they used to give their all for you. I didn't expect that they would end up like this. Gong Chenxue suddenly opened her eyes wide and said in disbelief, What did you say? She seemed to have suddenly thought of something and suddenly pounced in front of the head that she had just chopped off. She pushed aside her messy hair. However, it was not Dr. Song's face that was revealed, but her trusted subordinate. This was impossible. This is impossible. Gong Chenxue madly rushed over and pushed aside everyone's messy hair, only to discover that none of these people were the hostages she thought they were. On the contrary, every single one of them was her confidant, her strength that she relied on. But now, half of them had been killed by her. As for the remaining half, their stomachs were bulging and they were on the brink of death. Their flesh and blood would be devoured by the GU at any time. Jun Muyin, it's you. You're the one behind this. What did you do? However, no one on the observation deck paid attention to her hysterical roar. Dr. Song and the others, riddled with scars, have already been brought over. Following behind them is Han Yi. Chapter 618. He can't do anything that would destroy the balance of the Yenwu continent. However, it was very easy for him to do these little things that didn't matter much. Dr. Song and the rest were currently in a deep sleep. The GU worms in their abdomens had been taken out, and their lives were no longer in danger. However, it would take a long time to replenish the blood and essence that had been sucked away by the GU. After Mu Yang confirms that they're all right, she looks at Han Yi. Thank you very much this time. Madam, don't be so polite. Han Yi smiles. Sooner or later, we'll all be one family. Madam's business is our business. Cough, cough. Seeing Muyin's unkind gaze, Han Yi immediately changes the subject, and this time, it really isn't all my credit. Seeming to have thought of something, the light in Han Yi's eyes slightly sinks. His line of sight shifts towards the ink camp, who have also been rescued. When I went to save them, it was already too late. A few doctors couldn't hold on any longer. The gold silkworm GU larvae were about to break out of their bodies. At that time, even if I bring him back, he will only be a corpse. But strangely, one night, all the golden silkworm larvae suddenly fell into a deep sleep, as if they were on the verge of death. Dormant. Mu Yang slightly frowns, revealing a puzzled expression. Will the golden silkworm GU fall into a deep sleep? Han Yi says, we, the people of the polar domain, don't know much about the art of medical GU and poison, we're not very clear about it. But I know that most GU worms will fall into a short slumber after being attacked by the extreme cold. It was also because these GU worms were in deep slumber that I was able to smoothly extract these GU worms and place them in the bodies of Gong Chenchua's subordinates. What's strange is that the moment these GU worms entered the bodies of Gong Chenchua's subordinates, they immediately woke up and started to suck their flesh and blood. Mu Yang looks pensive. You mean, someone is helping us? Did you find out who they are? Han Yi's gaze turns towards the direction of the ink camp. He moves his lips, seemingly wanting to say something, but in the end, he swallows it back down. After a brief conversation with Han Yi, Muyin walks towards Chang Yu and the others. This time, when Tianyuan City was robbed, it wasn't only the doctors, Shen Father, and Shen Jinglin who were injured, but also these people from the ink camp who had risked their lives to follow her. In order to protect the Shen Father and Shen Jinglin, they stubbornly resisted, and in the end, more than half of them died. There were less than 30 of them left. Seeing Muyin approaching, the eyes of everyone in the ink camp brighten. Chang Yu's eyes were the brightest. They all knelt down and said in a hoarse voice, "Greetings, Miss." Mu Yang looked at these subordinates who were riddled with scars but had no regrets. Her heart was filled with an indescribable emotion and sourness. She wanted to apologize, because he was the one who had implicated them. But in the end, she only said softly, "You guys are very good. The ink camp, the Nether Flame Army, me and Xiaobao, we are all proud of you." More than 20 people abruptly raised their heads, and their eyes instantly reddened. Complex and passionate emotions flashed across their bruised faces. Most of them were the first to follow Muyin. After being abandoned in Wen Ren Ku, the words they heard the most were trash, beasts, and trash. In the past, they had abandoned themselves to despair and were cruel and bloodthirsty. Once upon a time, they were abandoned in a corner of the world, and no one cared about their lives or the value of their existence. But now, they finally found the faith to survive. Chapter 619. Willing to go through water and tread on fire for Miss and Master, without hesitation. Willing to go through water and tread on fire, without hesitation. The corners of Muyin's lips gently curve up, not moving. Xiao Bao steps forward, helping the 20 people up one by one. Being personally helped up by those fair and tender little hands, hearing Xiao Bao's childish voice calling out their names, saying welcome back. 7 feet of sweat, but each and every one of them is brimming with tears. Only Chang Yu goes in front of Muyan, a pair of dark eyes greedily looking at the girl's beautiful profile without blinking. However, when Muyan turns around, he quickly lowers his head, concealing all the emotions in his heart. "Miss, I'm sorry. It was my incompetence that caused the Ink camp to suffer such heavy losses." The man's hoarse voice of self-blame makes Muyan's expression soften, and she tenderly looks at him. But strangely, she doesn't know why, but she feels that Chang Yu's appearance seems to have changed a little. It seems that compared to his previous ordinary appearance that couldn't be recognized in a crowd of people, he's become a lot more handsome and good-looking. But looking closely, she feels that those eyebrows and eyes are exactly the same. Unexpectedly, she recalls the time when she was painting. At that time, she felt that Chang Yu's body and face were very out of place together. The lines of his body are very graceful, so much so that it can be said that he has a masculine charm that can make people's blood boil. But that face is like a passerby that can be caught anywhere. However, Muyan quickly throws this thought to the back of her mind. After returning to Hellfire Valley, you will gather the people again and form a team of the Ink camp. You will always be the Ink camp's first captain. Chang Yu's gaze jumps, as if there's a blazing emotion that's about to gush out. He purses his lips, and only after a long while does he say, "So miss, can I still stay by your, and the little master's side?" "Of course." Muyan curls up the corners of her mouth and smiles. "It hasn't even been 5 years, and you already want to leave?" "No. As long as Miss and Little Master don't mind, this subordinate is willing to follow you for a lifetime." Chang Yu's reply was resolute and decisive. His lowered eyes hid too many emotions. Not far away, Han Yi glances at Chang Yu, slightly narrowing his eyes, his expression unfathomable. Just then, Gong Chenshue's hysterical roar is heard from the other side. "Jun Muyan, do you think you've won like this? Don't forget, I still have thousands of men and horses. Even without hostages, I can still trample all of you into meat patties. Slut, if you have the guts, then fight my army head-on." Mu Yang raises her head and looks at Gong Chenshue across from her, revealing a mocking and disdainful smile. "Face off? Gong Chenshue, don't you know that I've waited for this moment for a very long time? Nether Flame Army, listen up." A clear shout came out unhurriedly. In an instant, shouts of agreement that were like a tsunami resounded from the surroundings of Heaven Departing City. "Ink Camp, heed my order. Heavenly Secret Battalion, heed my command. Longevity Battalion, heed my command." "As you command, young miss." Mu Yang slowly sits down cross-legged, her fingers lightly plucking the strings of the zither. Her gaze sweeps over the thousands of soldiers and horses below, as well as Gong Chenshue's ferocious face on the opposite side. Then, she gently and lazily spat out the word given, "Kill." Clang. The sound of the zither suddenly rose in pitch, turning into the roar of mountains and tsunamis, the shaking of the earth, the shattering of the heavens and the splitting of the earth. As for the 3 Nether Flame Army, they seemed to have received instructions and roared in unison. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.